Hello, this is another tutorial on how to use Lightshow Pro and transitions. And this is a technique to create chases using just transitions instead of using the grid to program all of the channels. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, and this might not be the most efficient way of doing it. But I want to use some tools that people might already have on their computer and kind of start there. So I'm using this PowerPoint, and I've created two slides, and the slides are just different colors, and these would be the colors that you'd want your lights to be. So if you're using RGB, then you would use the exact color that you'd want your RGB to. If you're using static lights, for example, if you have your trees wrapped in multiple colors like red and green, then it's less important that these actually match the colors of your lights. If you're doing static lights, you might just do something like black and white, or um, a, just different colors that represent your actual trees. So in this example, I'm going to show you how you match them up exactly. And so I've gone in, I've created a new slide, I've added a new drawing object. So I took this tool and dragged it out. And then I can get the color values for it. So I can do format, shape, and then I can select the color and then more colors. And this is going to tell me exactly what the color values are for the RGB. And you'll want to write down these numbers for both the orange and the blue. Then the next thing is to go into Live Movie Maker. And Live Movie Maker will add those two files that I just created. So we'll add the slides 1 and slide 2. So these were saved from PowerPoint. And so within PowerPoint you do save and then specify the file type and make sure that it's a JPEG. And then you just have the PowerPoint export out those two slides. Now we've imported in those two slides, so I have orange and I have blue, and I can kind of scrub through here and see those two colors. And now I want to add a visual effect between the two of them. And you can experiment and try different results with this. For this one, I'm just going to do a simple slide one and show how we can just slide from one to the next. You can see how some of these get kind of complicated pretty fast, and that's not really what we're trying to go for here. Okay, and then also we're going to change the duration to 2.5, and then let's just play that through and see if that's anywhere close to what we want. Okay, so it kind of does that white pattern. You might want to have something that's more distinct than that. So let's see if I can find one that is more distinct. Okay, exactly. So now it transitions from the orange to the blue. Okay, so then we want to save this out. So we're going to go ahead and go to the Home tab. We're going to say Save Movie. I'm going to have it replace this existing one, this color step 2. And it'll become apparent why we're doing that in just a moment. So the movie will go ahead and save. Okay, so now that is complete. And then we'll say close. And I'm just going to take this project here and I'm just going to delete the stuff in it. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the movie that we just created. Okay, so this is the one we just created, and it's going to be a movie, and it's just going to show you the transition that we did. And the reason we want to do this is we actually want to trim it, and we want to kind of trim it down to the point where we kind of see the start of the transition. So there's yellow start, and then we want to start at where the blue ends. And you can experiment with this, like you can change your own chase pattern just by lengthening either sides of this. But the idea is to go from blue to orange and back. So then we'll save the trim, we'll go back to home, and we'll save the movie. And this is where we'll do final chase. And we'll say, yes, I want to replace it. Now, the next step is Lightshow Pro only will accept an AVI file. It will not accept a Windows Media file. And so you have to convert the file from a Windows Media file into an AVI file. And there's different tools out there to do that. I happen to have Adobe Premiere, and so Adobe Premiere is just an easy tool for me to put videos onto a timeline and then be able to save them out. But there's a couple other things too to look at. So one is the video that we added in is exactly 2 seconds long. And then I'm going to save this, export media, and I'll show you the settings that we use. So one is we want to use an AVI, and when you have an AVI is just a container. It stores audio and video, and the video inside the AVI can be encoded with lots of different codecs. So this would show you the different codecs that you could encode this AVI video into. So you can use the Intel one to get some level of compression. The other ones give you less, like none would give you no compression at all. And some of them don't work with Lightshow Pro. Like these DV ones are usually used for camcorders, and so I've tried those and those don't work. So I use this one. You can also use other tools like DivX encoder, and the DivX encoder should let you go from a Windows Media file into an AVI file, and then you can encode it using the DivX codec, and that will work just fine. I know that the other transitions that are included with Lightshow Pro are all encoded with the DivX codec. So now we can also look at the height and width, and so we can tweak this down to 640 by 480. You can actually get this down even lower if you wanted to, like the 320 by 240. That just matches more what's on your screen size versus what would you normally find on a TV. Okay, and then next is frame rate. So frame rate is important to kind of keep track of, and I like to set it at a lower value, like 10 or maybe 15, and then we'll say export. And it's going to export it here. Most likely it's going to throw it on my desktop, so I'll say export. Okay, so now I have that inside. I've exported that out. So you can kind of see where I've been doing some experimenting and to kind of see what this would look like. And let's go ahead and we'll look at the transition. So I'll say edit transition, and I'm going to scroll down here, and this is one that I just added, and I'm going to go ahead and delete it and say yes, say okay. So now it's actually going to go and delete all that. It's just fine. Okay. So while it's generating those effects, in this example I have house lights. These are just static house lights. In my example, they have white ones, red ones, green ones, but it could be RGB or it could just be 2 sets of lights. The key thing here is to have the colors match the colors that you originally started with PowerPoint. So I can configure the channel, I can specify the color, and these values here, this RGB values, will match exactly what you had in PowerPoint. So you had 247, 150, and 70. If I go back over here and I select orange, and I choose the object, select color, more colors, you'll see that the numbers will match. Let me go back to the right color here. Okay, clearly not doing something right here. Let me make sure that I have the orange selected, draft on the color, more colors. Okay, there we go. 247, 150 with 70. Must not have had something selected properly. And those numbers will match here. You can also, if you right click inside the color palette, it will set it as a default color. So let's just say I had this at 100 and it's going to pick a new color. If I right click, it's now the preset. So that kind of makes it a little bit easier if you're dealing with multiple channels and you want to set them quickly and not have to keep typing in all those values. So that's kind of what I've done here with the first two. We'll say OK and such. So you want to color all of your channels to be the exact same colors that you have in the PowerPoint presentation and make sure that those align. So next we want to create a layer. So I've added a layer, and so you'll say add layer and just do the first one, do add layer, and then manually assign each one of those channels, or you can assign all these the controller to that particular layer. And so house light, so it's listed there. So now I have my controller, it's linked to my layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and add the transition. Alright, so we'll come into the transition, and we're going to say edit, And I'm going to add one of my own, and then we'll pull it from the desktop. So this will be this sequence 1, and say open. And now we get a little preview of what that looks like. Okay, so then we'll scroll down and we'll select it, and you'll see the preview of it. So we're almost done. So when we select this, we want a duration of say 10 seconds. So it will increase the duration a little bit. But we encoded everything at 10 frames per second. So if I have 10 seconds, I want 100 frames. And we also know that the video is 20 frames because it's 2 seconds long, so it'd be 20 frames. And so we can loop this a number of times. We can loop the video 5 times, and that will kind of that will match the 100 frames. So let's look at what this looks like. We also want to map to the stage versus the object, and then it will go and it will generate the effects, and we'll see what it does and see if we need to do any tweaking afterwards. Okay, now we can see it's drawing the effects, and it's actually doing what we want it to do. It's doing that chase pattern where the orange lights turn on and the blue lights are low, and it kind of cycles back and forth. Now, in the Movie Maker, when you pick that transition, that is what's going to define this pattern here. And so if you're seeing that it's not as crisp as you want, we actually, when we created this video here, it was a sliding pattern. You could do more of a flashing pattern where there was no transition between, so it just would go popping from blue to orange. You can also experiment with other different animations and kind of see what effects that would have when you're using the different transitions between the two. So let me go here quickly and we'll add back in those 2 colors. Okay, so now all of these different effects, as you do the wiping patterns, they will produce a different type of result even when you're using the Lightshow Pro. So this is a quick way to be able to do transitions using videos. The thing that I like about this method is when you want to make adjustments or changes, you can simply drag the actual layer, and then it will go ahead and it will regenerate the effects for you. And this is a little bit different than having to go into channels and start to copy and paste a bunch of effects inside the grid. This does it really all for you. The things to be cautious of is just understanding the math between the number of frames that you're creating and the video that you're using, and then how many times you can rotate it. But that was an example where I just wanted to maybe match the end of a beat, and I wanted to get it just perfect. Well, I don't have to go ahead and recreate a bunch of effects and worry about that. I can simply copy and I can simply add the transition. The same would be true if I wanted to add it on another layer. I could simply just drag it to another layer and then go in and select that transition. So I hope this has been helpful on how to use transitions. I know there's a different number of set of tools that are involved in order to create this technique, but once you've done it once or twice, then you find it really helpful throughout the rest of your show. Thank you.